Hi, I'm Anna Wilkinson from Friends of the Cancer Centre, and today I want to talk to you about Ask an Architect. This is an initiative that was set up a number of years ago by the TODD Trust and now works in partnership with Friends of the Cancer Centre to raise much needed funds to support local research into better ways to treat cancer and to reduce the side effects of the treatment as well. So if you're dreaming of a renovation or a new build project anywhere in Northern Ireland, you can have a consultation with a registered architect here, and your donation of £40 will help make a difference to the lives of local people affected by cancer. What I want to do today though is introduce you to a couple who took part in Ask an Architect a few years ago, and they'll give you an update on their build project and the difference it's made to them, especially during this period of lockdown.
Well, we've lived in this house for over 40 years now. Our children are grown up and gone. Even the grandchildren are grown up and mostly gone too. And we thought, what do we need in our house, in our life? For me, I wanted more light, more space. I wanted to be able to feel I was more outside than inside. And some parts of the house were feeling restricted. We looked at buying elsewhere and decided against that.
Well, we heard about the scheme and then went online to find out more details, and then having looked at it, we looked at a number of local architects and identified one that we were particularly familiar with and knew well, and so we contacted that architect, Clyde Markwell from Knox and Markwells, and made a donation of £40, and subsequently Clyde contacted us to arrange a consultation to discuss our needs and our priorities. Well, Clyde Markwell contacted us and arranged a date and a time that suited all of us. And Clyde came up to the house to meet with us over a cup of coffee. We discussed our general ideas about what we would like to do and what we would like to achieve, and roughly the kind of budget we had available. And he then began to input some ideas himself. Well, after Clyde had been with us and we had the consultation in the house, he went off to draw up some plans and to think about the kind of things that could be achieved within the context and the constraints that we'd outlined with him. And he came back to us then, made another appointment to come back with some draft plans to discuss with us both.
They were great because there were things we had never thought of, like opening up the dining room and creating more light space in there, and it was great.
Basic ideas were well incorporated. Some of the things we'd originally suggested were including building a porch at the front of the house to improve insulation and so on there. Ultimately, we decided not to go with that because of the overall cost of the projects, and those are important factors as well to consider.
Mm-hmm. The other thing that Clyde suggested, which has been amazing, because the house had been a bit drafty, Clyde decided that it was to suggest having underfloor insulation, which has been fantastic.
Well, at that stage, Clyde then was commissioned to draw up detailed plans about the bits that we did think we would go ahead with. We were sure we would go ahead with. And he then did the architectural plans necessary to submit to builders. And the second part of his work then was to issue tender documents to a range of builders to determine who best would fit our needs within the budgets that we had set. That's quite a big task for somebody to take on themselves, so it's good to be able to get an architect to deal with that side. And of course, throughout the process, overall management of the project was within Clyde's remit. He dealt with that as part of his commissioned work with us.
It seemed to happen reasonably quickly, actually. The work started, I think, once we'd agreed upon everything and the builder had put us into his calendar, because they're busy as well. I think the work team started late summer, early autumn. It was about 2 months in completion, some of it very noisy and dusty and everything else.
Okay, so I mentioned earlier that we didn't go ahead with the project to build an extended porch But one of Clyde's suggestions was to open up the downstairs space we had and remove walls, which meant we had an extended dining area, allowed more light into the whole ground floor, a big window put into that space so that we got much more view of the garden into it, as well as more light into the room area. And the main project then was a garden room, so that we could have seating which felt as if we were more in the garden space, surrounded by greenery as opposed to inside, with just patio doors as they used to be. Part of the project then was also getting all the underfloors in those areas insulated to compensate for other heat losses in different areas of the building.
Yeah, and having the dining room extended was marvellous because it meant that we could have much more movement around the dining room. It was quite restricted before, and it was something we just hadn't thought about. The garden room is really my space, so I used it for indulgent purposes like reading, really, and to begin with. Yes, well, you wouldn't begin to understand how important it's been to me, actually. Being spring and summer, the garden has been glorious. I've been able to watch the bird life. The flowers are all coming up, and I didn't really appreciate last year how beautiful they were because I wasn't here as much. Mostly now, it's I spend a lot of the time in here, and it's my Zoom room now. A lot of my activities have been restricted now to online activities. So I would do my yoga in here. I do my choir singing in here. I still read a lot. So it's just been fantastic.
My main purpose in using the garden room is to carry in the coffee or the glasses of wine whenever required.
Well, I would say yes, get the advice of a good architect primarily, because that was so intrinsically important to the whole process.
Yeah, I think it's very important, especially at this time when you've got time to reflect. You might have to consider budget constraints and so on, but it's still a good time to begin the process of planning for change. Or maybe you would be deciding to make changes to your house rather than move to another house, which would increase costs for you. So this is an ideal opportunity to reflect on what space you have, what space you need, and what you want to do in those spaces, especially at a time when you're more housebound. I'd like to say to everybody it's a brilliant scheme, the Ask an Architect scheme. Wholeheartedly recommend it. Two things: it's extremely inexpensive to get a consultation this way, and most importantly, your donation is a significant contribution to the work carried out by Friends of the Cancer Centre in Belfast. Two big ticks, well worth doing.
There are currently almost 50 chartered architects taking part in Ask an Architect, and the scheme has been extended through to September 2020. Architects are able to have consultations with you online and by video call to help you progress your project. I just want to take this opportunity to say thank you so much to everyone at the TODD Trust, at the RSUA, and to all the architects who are taking part in the project this year and helping Friends of the Cancer Centre make such a difference to so many people right across Northern Ireland. To make your booking, please visit askanarchitect-ni.com.